live and recorded. So the first order of business is nominations for chair.
Because my term is over.
Maybe not for long.
I nominate Alice Livedall.
I second that.
I would be happy to give to either one of you gentlemen instead, honestly, really. I don't wanna do it a whole year, but I know you're really busy, cause I've asked you 100 times.
Oh, no.
And Christopher says he may take it over later in the year, so,
Okay.
Can you check with her
I'll-
and see if she sees it now?
yeah, we're good.
Okay.
So I'll accept the nomination, but you guys gotta understand,
We understand.
halfway through the year, if you're still willing, we'll,
work that out. All right,
I'm
so
just,
it's been
I'm just
seconded.
wearing out.
It's been seconded, Mallory,
Yes.
so at this point in time, I guess we should vote.
Yep, go ahead.
Yep. Monroe, aye.
The
Counselor-
die.
Counselor Steiger, aye.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Okay, so I can take over. Now we need-
Congratulations.
We need, so this has been a sort of a point of planning board history, but we don't do a vice chair. Instead, we just nominate a clerk who runs the meetings if, the chair isn't there. And the reason we don't do a vice, chair is because under Robert's rules, that person that's the vice chair is immediately
Becomes the chair.
becomes the chair, and people didn't wanna take the position because they, anyway, so the clerk, you would have another vote in order to put the chair in. So you can be the clerk without having to step up to chair. But having said that, our clerk has been Bill Holmans, and I don't think he's wedded to the job at all. I think he'd be happy to give it to Christopher. So I nominate Christopher Monroe
And
to
I
be the
second
clerk.
that, I second that motion.
Any discussion, any other further nominations? Okay, and by consent, we'll close the nominations and we'll vote. Livedall, aye.
Steiger, aye.
Monroe, aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
we got a chair and a clerk moving right along. I think the next order, and I know, Mr. Dakota, we're gonna get to you in a minute. We just have
Yeah, absolutely.
procedural things we have to do first. As I wanna, set a date for the next meeting, once a year you have chance to change it. So we've been doing first and third Thursdays at 6:30,
Mhm.
and a lot of people have adjusted their calendars to work for that, but I'm open to other suggestions. Any other suggestions?
Not at this time.
Does that date work for, schedule work for everybody?
Pretty much planned around it at this point.
Okay, all right, so, I don't think we need to vote on that, we'll just continue on, but it should be noted that we've decided that.
Alex,
So,
what about the next meeting is July 1st?
that's exactly my next thing.
Perfect.
So the first Thursday in July is the first, and, wait, is that right, or the first Thursday is the 5th, right? I don't know, I have notes that aren't good.
The first Thursday is the 1st.
Okay. I don't know why I did this
July
wrong.
1st
July
is the
1st.
first.
So, I'm thinking we should just, and we have to meet with the select board on the 6th
And the
as a planning
21st.
board. I don't think we have to do it on the 21st. I
The
disagree with
21st
it.
is the community outreach hearing for
Oh,
Damon.
so we do have to do it both times.
And you're getting somebody appointed on the 21st, aren't you?
Vote to
Well-
fill the vacancy, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the 21st, I'm sorry, the 21st we do have to meet.
Yes.
It's July 6th that I don't think we have to meet, all come,
Right.
because we're just voting, they are appointing Erica, and it's not a joint vote, I don't think.
Right, they're taking your recommendation.
Our recommendation, all right, so, sorry, I just got the order mixed up. So, so I was thinking we could go to the third week, which is,
15th.
15th?
yeah, the 15th, 7/15. So then we would wind up meeting June 21st, and then we don't need to meet July 6th, I don't think, but we would meet July 15th. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if I hear differently, this is, and then, so that's a month with July is a meeting with a month with 5 Thursdays.
Correct.
So we're not meeting right on top of it. If we move it to the 15th, then we, have another week before we get into the August. I mean, another whole week that goes by.
Well, it's actually 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, a week in between, right, without, yeah, 2 weeks, okay. I don't know, if things get busy, we can
Sure.
call a meeting, it would always be on a Thursday, but I'm thinking we could probably get away with that, meeting on the, so it'd be 7:15 and then August, what's the first day in August?
The first Thursday is the 5th.
Fifth.
Oh, that's where I
Thursday.
got the 5th, okay,
Yep.
and then August 5th. All right, so that's decided. So, before we move on to other stuff, as we're talking about board members, there are committees which planning board members are ex officio and also, boards where members are official members. So so we need to deal with those assignments. So one is the CPC, which is the, Community Preservation Committee,
Mhm.
which I have been on, but I don't think it has to be the chair of the planning board, it just has to be a planning board member. So that's open, our role on that committee, I mean, it's kind of for the public too, is we vote on all the community preservation projects. And it's a board that's composed of, one member from all these committees. But our particular areas are affordable housing, because we are the Affordable Housing Committee. So those funds we sponsor. So that's one we need somebody to take. And then there's the Economic Development Committee, which is headed by,
Whitney Freiberg.
Whitney Freiberg. And her committee, I mean, it makes the planning board members ex officio, but it's very helpful to go to that meeting because they're there trying to figure out how to develop the town, and it helps have a planning board voice on that meeting, how to economically develop the town. And then there's, so that's been John's, but I'm sure he hasn't been able to attend it most of the time, so if anybody else wants to do that, we could do that, I could do that, you could do CPC, we'll think about it. The CICP stands for, let me think, Capital Improvement Planning Committee, got it
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I had a cheat sheet from Mallory today. And that, is kind of, you can tell what it does, what does it do? Go ahead.
I meet with my friend.
You meet with your friend?
We have meetings that basically look at all of the funds that are available for capital improvement. So there's a budget that typically gets set by the town administrator. We work with that. Prioritized list of potential projects are presented to us. We review them, debate them, meet, as a matter of fact, with various different groups within the town. That could be anything from the fire department, police department, cemetery commission, etc. And at that point in time, we make assessments of where best to allocate the limited funds that we have. And there has been I've been on it for 2 years, would love to continue doing the work. And I think it's a great way for the planning board also to have an input into this here.
Okay. That's great. And then the MJTC is not something that I'm probably gonna be able to give away to anybody, but it's a really important, the Montechusett Joint Committee on Transportation. Yeah. And it's a really important committee actually because it decides all the road monies and all the like bridges, culverts, how it gets distributed in our region. And you can actually have 2 members, and I keep trying to recruit Travis or somebody, because you go to these meetings and they allocate, $1 million here and $1 million there, and then they have a featured speaker that gets into the nitty gritty of how you plan handicap access ramps, which I like, But anyway, but it's very important, and we have in Hubbardston the biggest project on their list this coming year, which is the town center project in the whole region, which is like 15. It meets pretty inconveniently on Wednesday, once a month, 10 meetings a year, Wednesday afternoon at 2:30.
Wow.
So,
It's all virtual though.
it's all virtual though, you don't have to go anywhere, as far as I know. So, and I don't know whether Erica could be on any of these. It doesn't say anywhere that she can't.
I think she can.
You think she can? So, okay, well, so we have Francois that's been on the CIPC committee, and unless you want to do it, should we let him continue on? He does a great job.
I think so.
Okay, we'll
Sorry.
vote one slate.
Okay.
Would you like to be on the CPC as the new member, or would you rather be on the EDC?
I'd be more interested in the EDC.
Okay, I know that, that would be great. So we'll put Christopher. And
Madam
I'll
Chair.
yeah,
Sorry, I would just wanna remind that since we already have, I mean, we only have 3 members here today, and, I mean, obviously Erica being here as the alternate for now, and then hopefully continuing, we will have potentially 2 additional members. We don't have to fill them all up today, I
that's
think,
right, we have Bill as
So
well, and
Bill, we can
John.
probably connect with, but whoever gets assigned to the new role for this 1-year term can also potentially be assigned a role here. What I'm just saying is,
Yeah.
I don't think we have to fill them right today. So I don't think we have to feel obliged to just make sure that we have all of these
Except
these
you're
slots.
willing to do it, he's
Yes, no,
willing
no,
to do
I'm
it.
thinking whatever we
Yeah.
have, let's take it, but I don't
Okay.
think that if there's something that we want to distribute still at a later time, we can certainly do that at our next meeting.
Let's
And I
save
think-
some excitement for the new guy.
You got it.
Well, I don't think, I have talked to John, and I don't think he's particularly interested in staying on. I mean,
Well,
we could ask him
We
on the
We gotta be
EDC.
careful with this here
Yeah,
because, Madam
we-
Chair, because John is not yet a member of this
Oh,
planning
that's
board,
true, he's not.
okay? So I just wanna remind
I
that.
just know that he was on it and he did not have the time.
That's fine.
Of course, I
So-
guess you could have another. I'll tell you what, why don't we set these positions? I'll do CPC, you have to have somebody on, it's just incredibly important.
Sure.
Because if you look at how the money's been spent on that committee, take a 10-year look, we have spent nothing on housing, right? And there have
Sure.
been big piles of money spent in the other two, historic and open space, right?
Absolutely.
So if you don't have the voice there, you know, you're
Advocating
never
for
gonna
this,
get
yeah.
there. So I'll do, if this is all right with everybody, I'll do CPC, you can do EDC, you can do CIPC, and I'll talk to, you know, John would not be a bad fit if he's willing to do the MJTC, but you can have 2 members on that too.
Correct, and I mean, I
So-
don't wanna take away from Erica's.
Or if you, would you
once-
like,
once
do
she
you ever
gets-
like,
on- Once she
is that
gets,
something
once
you'd
she-
like to
No,
do?
this is a lot right
Yeah.
here,
This is-
so
all
I
right,
don't
all right.
know.
All I'm saying
All
is
right.
also, let's keep in mind Erica's position will be up for,
nomination as well?
nomination in the future, so we need to make sure that we preserve that
That's
privilege
true.
for whoever gets,
That's true. Well, let's for, at least on the interim, and we can change it.
okay.
Take a vote, I'll do CPC, I'll stay on MGTC. Christopher will do EDC and you'll do CIPC.
Yes, ma'am,
Is that all right?
yes,
Okay, so I vote for those appointments. Is there a second?
I am seconding that motion.
Any further discussion? Okay, shall we vote? Lived all aye.
Monroe, I.
Steiger, aye.
Okay, we have those set. Okay, so those are. Okay, so then the last thing that's on organizational, and then we're gonna get to Mr. Dakota over there, is we need to take a vote to recommend Erica Dack continue on as our associate member. Because our bylaw reads, you take a vote on the recommendation of the planning board. So, but I had a question for you on that. So was that posted anywhere?
I think Lori, the town clerk, was in charge of that.
And it did get posted?
I believe so.
Okay, all right, because you gotta give other people a chance.
Right.
To come
Should-
up.
Should we know more than I believe so on that?
No, let me double check with her. Because
There is a letter in the documents where she lists all the open positions, but I don't know whether that was on it
I
or not.
don't know how that was for the 1-year term that we have.
Oh, those were elected positions
Elected
that were
positions,
open,
That
okay.
was a failure to elect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
and that has to be the one week posted,
right.
which David and I took care of. That part is all set. And
So
that's
is-
gonna be on the 21st.
If there is an appointed position then, does it have to be posted, do you know?
I've never seen it posted.
I don't
Okay,
believe it gets
okay,
posted, yeah.
and particularly in this case where you have an incumbent that wants to carry on,
Correct.
right? I think let's write a letter, so, I need a motion to recommend to the select board that Erica Dack be, appointed for 1 year, cause that's the 1-year position as the associate member of the planning board.
So I'm making a motion that the planning board recommend to the select board that Erica Dack be the person who should be considered for the open position as the associate member of the planning board. Assuming
Right.
again, she accepts.
Absolutely.
I checked that out ahead of time.
I
Second.
second.
Lived all I.
Steiger, aye.
Monroe, I.
Okay, so Mallory, you've gotta do that, right?
Okay,
Okay, so now, having, sort of, usually we start with public comments.
Sure.
And I apologize for making you wait, but we have to organize, cause this is that meeting. So, we ask that anybody from the public can speak to our board, we're happy to have input from the public. We just ask you to identify yourself for the record, say your name, where you're from, and then, address us politely and keep it fairly short, that's all. So, would you like to speak to us?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I came up for what's going on because my sister there did not pay.
State your name first.
Name
'cause it-
first and your address. Why you're here. Your name and why you're here. For public record.
For public record.
Yep, David Dakota is your name.
David Dakota.
Yep.
Trustee
There you go.
of the lot down at 55 Old Boston Turnpike. There's 3 lots. Lot 1, Lot 2, which is 55 Old Boston Turnpike,
Mhm.
and Lot 3 is across the street. I
Okay.
have documents on that. She went to court a long time ago, my sister, and she was told that she could have the 100 by the 100 to live on as long as she met with the rules. She didn't meet with the rule of anything that was going on down there. So then she had her daughter file for a license for dogs. Okay, now the licenses for the dogs were going back and forth between her and her daughter Cindy. Well, she was in Arizona, Cindy's up here getting a license for the dogs. So the town gives her a permit to have 5 dogs on the property.
5?
There's been more than 5 dogs on the property, trust me. Because the cyclone fence is up, there's a wooden fence up, and the cyclone fence has been pulled down with the dogs. The dogs were supposed to be on leash, coming from the cellar into the kennels. It didn't happen, it hasn't happened. And it's been, the dog officer calls her, she moves the dog, she calls her daughter comes down and moves the dogs. The house, right now, and a year ago, or 2 years ago, better than that, puppies after puppies after puppies after puppies after litter. The police department went down on one of the calls. Okay, before that, I was on the fire squad, the fire department in Hubbardston, rescue squad and that there. They threw a restraining order against me, my sister did. My mother died, she never told us. I get a call from down in Holden from Mrs. Miles. Would you like to come down and see your mother? That was shocking. They've done nothing but to try to break this trust. This trust wasn't for us. It was set up for my mother and myself to protect the children that Cindy had and Carolyn had. But her mother has already broke the trust because she hasn't paid her taxes. The town now has the deed to the property. The fence is 37 feet over into my lot, which is lot 1. She has lot 2, and lot 3 I have across the beach.
Oh,
And
Okay,
I don't know
so-
what else. She's gone to court. There's a court record in there. She agreed for staying on 100 by 100. It doesn't happen.
So, Mr. Dakota,
I would
I'm
like
trying to
to-
think how we can help you with this, cause
I would like the fence removed, because number one, we're paying taxes on lot 1, okay? We have 37 feet that the town right now owns. The town has the deed to that house.
Is
tax-
it, is it in tax
title.
fork?
It's
It's
in
in
Yes,
tax
it is.
title.
Ti-
So
it's
there's
And
not
still-
I
owned
can't
yet,
do
it's in
anything,
title.
and I've talked to people,
Okay.
and people said, David, you're paying taxes on your property, you have the right to get that fence off of there.
So-
According to the police, no, you cannot touch that fence because they can arrest you. They can't, because the town now has the property. Now, this is up to the town to make a decision. All I wanna do is have somebody either from the board here come down and look at the fence, or just give them a 2-week notice to remove the fence off.
Mr. Dakota, I will come down and take a look at the fence as the chair of the
I'll be
board.
very happy for you,
If you
because then
lea-
you can see the cyclone fence and agree.
But I wanna say that we have limited authorities, we're not like the police in town, you know?
Yeah, well, you'd have
And
to
the-
get, yeah,
yeah, and the
you'd get a hold of
town-
me.
but the
Because
town, if,
on this, it was restricted, way back, I think you have it from,
Yeah,
is,
so.
is
in-
there an active dog kennel license on this property right now?
No.
yeah,
No?
but they were supposed to be taken out on a leash.
There's not an active kennel license.
Okay,
according
so
to the
I
town clerk.
think-
And then, so what David Dakota is talking about as far as the fence goes, back in 2009.
Yep.
The planning board then issued a special
I have a hard
permit
time
for the
hearing,
kennel
just to
license.
let you
Yeah,
people
that's
know.
okay.
I'm just going over
Wait.
what we talked about.
Yeah, talk loud, cause I don't think he hears.
and-
2009?
Yep, the planning board issued a special permit for a kennel.
I thought we didn't issue a special
In
permit.
2009, we did for
Okay.
installation of 6-foot stockade or similar solid fencing. Fence will run continuous from the walls of the house around any area that is occupied by the kennels and dogs at any time. Kennel must conform to all zoning. So Mr. Dakota is concerned about that fence that is mentioned in our special permit from 2009.
How long does that special permit, run for?
2 years, right?
Until they discontinue the.
Yeah, and there's no longer a kennel license there, or
Okay, so, alright, so, I want to, if we vote to
They-
discontinue the special permit, maybe not tonight, because your sister's entitled to some notice. Can we do that?
If they don't have a license,
If they don't have a license
they've
for it?
ceased to have a kennel, and therefore the special permit expires.
Okay, so, can you understand what he's saying? Is we can revoke a special permit if the property's no longer being used in accordance with the special permit, which means she would have to have a license and and comply with it. Now,
Okay.
are those terms about the dogs being leashed and the other things he's talking about in that?
Yes, ma'am. So dogs must be under control, restraint, or in kennel at all times. Dogs may not roam freely inside stockade fence.
And they do roam freely inside the stockade fence?
And he's concerned about the holes in the fence because they are escaping this fence. And they've had puppies drowned in the nearby standing water.
Oh, so this is a horrible situation.
It's not a good situation.
Okay, it isn't really me, I mean, I'm happy to go out, but I think it's maybe, we need a
Zoning.
copy of the special permit
Yeah.
and Roland has to go out with me.
I think, yeah, if we had more than one board, maybe even a police officer.
Maybe Roland and a police officer and I.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if
I'd
we
be happy
want
to
to
go too if you need
revoke
me to.
a special permit, cause I've never done this before, do you have to have a hearing on it, and let the abutters know?
It's the reverse of granting a special permit.
Same
You have to
procedural.
have- notify abutters, you have to have a public hearing.
Okay, does he,
Or, there's an easier way. I always go the hard way first. Just ask town council, I think town council will tell you that special permit, because the requirements of the special permit haven't been met.
yeah,
It may be that the special permit, because it hasn't been met, and they don't have a kennel license, special permit may have exhausted itself anyway.
okay, so Mr. Dakota, I will, you have a way to get hold of him, right?
Yep.
It's his phone number, okay, so, I might have to seek permission, I will talk to Roland, and I will talk to the police officer, see when we can get together and come over, I'll give you a call. And I'll talk to town council and see how we go about revoking her special permit. So she's no longer allowed to operate a kennel there because she's not complying with the rules.
Okay.
It's a, it's a legal process.
How can she apply though for a special one now? Wait a minute. The town has the deed.
Well, that's another
owns
reason.
the lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's another reason.
Yeah.
So the first step is going to be to get the Roland and Alice and a police officer, everyone who's involved in the enforcement down there together, so we can get a comprehensive plan in action for you, okay?
So, are they gonna let me take the fence down
The
or
first,
no?
No.
we have to go out there and take a look first, is what they're saying. So they're gonna go out and start the investigation,
Okay,
okay? So
okay.
just, you gotta be patient for a little bit.
And then we would revoke the special permit. But I think that it's a process. You're gonna have to have those dogs removed by somebody. If she doesn't, then an animal control officer, or, you can't just take the fence down and let them run all over town.
Alice, should we invite the
Yeah, and
ACO
this
too?
whole thing has been a mess, because it's either her mother or Cindy.
Well, who's
Okay,
living
her
there right
daughter.
now?
But again, they gave her a special permit before, whatever. But Cindy wasn't living there. She was getting her mail at 55 Old Boston Turnpike,
Who's living there now?
because my sister was in Arizona.
Who lives there now, David? Is Cindy there or is her daughter there? Living there?
It's her daughter.
Her daughter.
Yeah.
Because Cindy was trying to open a kennel in another town.
Cindy's the daughter?
Cindy's the sister.
Oh.
And then her other daughter is Carolyn.
And who lives there? The two of them?
The daughters.
Okay, can you get those names?
I will.
And I'll,
Yeah.
we have a plan. It's the justice goes slowly, all right? So you have to wait till we can get back to you, but I'll get back to you in the next week or so.
Did you
Okay?
hear her?
We gotta,
Okay.
Sign.
Yeah, she'll get back. So we'll get everyone together. We'll get out there. I have your phone number. I have Pat's contact information. So,
Okay.
okay, we'll keep you in the
And
loop.
then somebody is gonna come down and look at this.
Yep.
right, and then we're gonna
then I
decide.
can show you, yes, and even
Okay.
if you doubt the deed, that gives you the plaque of 100 by 100. That's it.
Okay, we'll take that too.
That
Whatever
right.
you wanna submit, and we will look at, make sure the town does own the land, and then we're probably gonna have to be a little longer, cause we're gonna have to ask town council how to do this. But we'll try to address your problem.
Well, I have, like I said, I have a hard time hearing, okay, and understanding what's going on
Okay.
on this. But I've been battling this for a long, long time.
I know you have, yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's frustrating. I'm 77 years old.
Okay.
And we've had this piece of property. My dad worked his butt off to get lot 1, which was fine. We had a little snack bar up. Then he had a chance to buy lot 2. Lot 2 was 100 by 100. With lot 2, lot 3 was across the street, because the way that the house was built by Kerry. He owned lot 2. He got a lot from the MDC, an 8-foot right of way. It went with that.
So who
That's
lives
why-
in lot 3 now?
What?
Who lives in lot 3?
Who lives in lot 3?
Who is what?
Who lives in lot 3? Is
Nobody.
That,
Nobody.
That's the beach.
Okay.
That
It's
is
an open,
the
it's an open
8-foot
area.
right of way.
Okay.
An 8-foot right of way.
Okay.
To Comet Pond. Right next to where the old boat ramp used to be.
Okay. How many neighbors do you have over there?
The what?
How many neighbors?
We have right next to Hawley's.
Yeah.
Rapid and David Hawley.
There's
Okay.
not many, Alice.
Okay, so if we had a hearing, the neighbors would, all right, okay, I will call you,
Okay, that would be
or
fine.
Mallory will call you, one of the two of us.
I will have you talk to my wife, and then my
Yeah.
wife.
Yes,
will
I know,
talk-
your
I'm not-
wife, yeah.
Pat.
I thought we could not help you last time because she had a kennel license, but now she doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't look like she's renewed.
Well, I know
Okay,
that.
so,
But
okay, and if she's
again-
got 5 dogs, it's over the limit anyway.
But again,
So-
even if you went down there, she doesn't let the dog officer go upstairs.
All right, well, the dog officer should
Oh,
come with us,
Yeah,
too.
I was
but
just gonna ask
we
you,
did
should we
call the
invent
dog
them?
officer. The dog officer sent us back to the planning board.
Okay,
Well, if
we
we're
will
all
try to
there, they
address it.
can't send us
This
anywhere.
has been like well, I started this way back last year with the town administrator.
Yeah, he's working
Then
with
we
Ryan.
called the town administrator. He never got back to me. When we find out, he's on absent leave in the military for duty.
Right,
Nobody's got back to me for over a year.
This time.
okay,
Well, we have a plan.
Well, we
We have a
have.
plan.
She has helped
Okay.
me out. She has really helped me out. And it's hard, it's frustrating for
I know,
me.
we have enforcement, it's hard to
Yeah.
get enforcement in this town,
And
I
they're just
acknowledge that.
waiting because they know when that fence comes down, they're gonna call the police, okay? And they're gonna have me arrested. But again, they can't because the town right now owns that piece of property.
Okay,
Okay.
alright,
Okay.
we'll call you, we have a whole agenda here, so we
Well,
can't give
they
you more
got the
time,
deed to the
but we will
property.
call you.
Right, so I mean, if they got the deed, is Hubbardson gonna turn around and sue me if moving the fence? I don't think so.
But we can't let the dogs run
Right.
wild. We have to address the situation correctly, right? So we'll be in touch.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for coming in.
Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
We're all
I
set.
appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, boards. I hope we can get it done.
We'll work on it.
It is really, really frustrating. And it's too bad because when you do go to a board and somebody tells you what to do, nobody checks up on it. You try to call somebody and they,
We'll
It's
get,
frustrating.
we're not
It-
gonna let it drop. We'll get back to you.
it is.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
All right. Oh, you know, enforcement is an issue, so we need to step up to the plate on, I think, if we have a special
I gave it
permit.
back. You have it.
No, no, the ones that I left you on the desk,
You have it. I gave them back.
all of them?
Yep.
Oh, you did. Thank you.
Okay?
Alice, please don't go to that property without a police officer
Yeah, I
present at
won't.
any time.
Yeah, we need to, maybe we need to have that, adjourn another, what was that called? When we dealt with the used car,
A coalition.
a coalition, to
Yeah.
deal with this problem.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't want anyone going
will
there
you,
without police.
let's, I'll talk to David, I'll talk to you, and we'll try to figure it out. If we could revoke the permit and there's a way to do it,
Well, if
especially
she
if the
let it
town-
expire, then it's even better.
Yeah, I have a feeling
It's
it
gone.
has expired.
Yeah.
Because they're in violation and they didn't renew their kennel permit.
I'm also
I think
showing it
all of
was
that-
never recorded on the registry. of
and then
deeds.
if,
Oh, well, then if it was.
and if the
Yeah.
town does have, you know, if it's
Tax
in
title.
tax title, that gives us some,
It is in tax title.
further-
The tax title is in David's name though. It's not in his sister's
yeah,
name.
but you can hit that one, I learned this a long time ago. If you own multiple lots, one could go into tax title and it cannot affect your others. So if you own a piece of wetland and you don't wanna pay the taxes on it, you can let it go to the
Oh,
town.
wow.
So it won't affect where he
Good.
lives, I don't think. Alright, it's a tough one, but we're not gonna just ignore it, especially if there's dogs involved and other neighbors and, yeah. Alright. Okay, Marinelli, we have a guest speaker in 5 minutes, but I wanna, talk to you about the Marinelli situation. So the Marinellis, I have to find my note, oh no, you know what, let's do Bill's
Yeah.
bill here. This is actually, I'm moving it up the agenda. It was on the agenda as 8B, administrative matters, because that's usually where it would fall. But it's, so this, this invoice, it was in the documents, for Bill's services for 69 Gardner Road, which we all know what that was like. And it ran over his estimate in part because we got down to the last minute and nobody knew whether we would vote yes or no because we didn't know how we would vote till we had a water issue, and so he wound up having to write, because it was the very last day of the last day, a negative opinion and a positive opinion, right? So that threw it over, and plus there was everything that happened after May 8th, I think it was May 8th, that involved the water issue, which involved a lot of his time. Can we safely do this or can't we? I think we got, you know, we made the decision, right or wrong, that if he moved the well over and we limited the amount of water, we would grant it. But all of that involved professional consultation. So I don't know what else ran this over. If there's anything else you'd like to say, it has been sent to,
Mr. Schmidt's gotten it electronically, and I sent it in paper copy too, with a copy of our invoice, because he did still have some funds left, so he doesn't owe that total. He just has a balance to the town with the administrative fee of $4,223.19 owed to the town. Surprisingly, because he's usually pretty quick about getting back to me, I haven't heard anything on that.
well, we're gonna see him again Monday.
Yep, so,
And I don't think we're gonna entertain his next special permit
Until
without
this one's complete.
cleaning this up at
Yeah.
least.
Actually, his,
But-
his old special permit says prior to the initiation of construction, he shall pay for all
Yeah.
taxes, fees,
So,
and other services due.
so we won't, as
That-
the building department, we won't issue a permit until he is caught up on this.
Okay, well, I know, but he's planting plants, he's not building a building, right?
Well,
Yeah, but he still has permits out.
He still has to get,
He has electrical,
Okay.
he has
all
gas,
right,
he has.
well, I give him the benefit of the doubt, he's always paid his,
Yeah.
the bill, he's always been good about this, but I will point to the board, we are the people that get the bill and have to approve it as well,
Mhm.
right? And then, then he has to pay it. So if there's a vote to approve this invoice, so it's a total invoice of $7,121. Now, is that all the services from the beginning? Or
This is
that's-
the second invoice, he's already, the first
It's-
invoice is already.
and the
been
first one's been paid. So how did you say the 400, how did you get it down to 4,000? Cause he still has some
He's
money
still
left
funds in the
over.
fund. Yeah. in
Oh,
his
okay,
account.
got it. Alright, so can I have a vote to approve Places Associates
I'm
invoice?
sorry, Bill wanted to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like you to amend the motion to say upon receipt of full payment, you approve paying me,
Okay, yeah, that helps us.
cause you don't wanna take money out of your fund if you haven't been paid.
Okay,
I know it slows me down, but.
Yeah.
Quick question, Bill, I just wanna make sure, I mean, I see all the dates here, I'm assuming these are complete beyond the 6/2 date, there is no additional accruals that would be included in any future bill that we might be expecting?
Yeah, there are. There's been some follow-up, but I would charge that, so in the special permit, I'm supposed to get you a proposal for construction support and project closeout,
Mm-hmm,
and that's how I would bill that.
gotcha, okay. Very good,
So this is everything to the special permit.
to the special permit, gotcha.
directly, okay, up to that point.
Yes.
Okay, so,
At this point in time, Madam Chair, if I may make a motion to accept the invoice as presented by Places and Associate, with the notion that payment is, how did you phrase it?
upon receipt of,
Upon,
The board authorizes payment upon receipt of funds from the applicant
yes,
to cover the total amount.
so at this point in time, I'd like to include that as part of the motion.
I got it written down.
okay.
Thank you.
Did I do it all right?
That sounds better than I could do,
Yeah,
so.
no, I appreciate that. Wanna give a
Yes,
second?
and I second.
Okay, any further discussion on the invoice? Hearing none, lived all eye.
Steiger, aye.
Monroe, I.
Okay, thanks. All right, so Bill's free to
Bill.
go, or he can still listen.
Well,
Stick around and hear
there is
about
no-
Marinelli for 5 minutes till our guest speaker shows
Bill.
up.
I certainly had an opinion on Marinelli.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something here, and that is, as a member of the board, I think that this board would have been tremendously handicapped without the advice that came from you. And I want to express, at least from my side, but I think it's really from the board itself, the objective perspective that you presented during all of this very long and drawn-out process, and thank you so much. I
Absolutely.
think we're very fortunate to have somebody like you assist us here. Thank you.
Well, it's a team behind me, so it's not just
I-
myself.
You know,
yes.
one of the things later in this agenda is taking our collective knowledge and rewriting that bylaw. Because the bylaw has no limits. It's like saying, having a bylaw for building a house with no setbacks and no heights and nothing, right? So we
Right.
need to do this.
It's an evolutionary process. I mean, we see it with the solar bylaw.
Right.
We see it with the marijuana bylaw. These are bylaws that have been created in the last 10 years, and as things are evolving, I think we, as a planning board, really need to look at the lessons learned and bring these to discussion and to potentially amend things as we go forward here.
Well, it's on this list but I kinda wanna go down the list cause I'm gonna lose my place. So we're under 7A, and then, cause I already said as soon as Jennifer Burney gets here, we would let her speak.
Well, you
Would
had something about the Marinelli gravel pit discussion, right?
Okay, so I wanna just talk about that, so I wanted, because this has been I've been holding on to this since May 27th. So on May 27th, and it was actually a couple weeks before that I got this call from the Marinelli's attorney, whose name is Michael Wiggins, and he's an attorney with Weston Patrick, PA, a big Boston firm, and it was a conference call, and the other participant was a guy named Ben Sales, who's the managing director of JLL Capital Markets, which is a real estate marketing company also in Boston. You might remember I told the board they'd contacted me, and then I talked, anyway, so this happened. So, just for the sake of cluing people in, the Marinellis own 96.55 acres on Pitcherville Road, which was formerly used as a gravel pit. And they were looking for input from the planning board as to where to go with this piece of land. And the Marinellis have a history with us. They've come here, they've talked to us. Anyway, they had put a plan before the board some years ago, Bill was very familiar with it, that was to restore the gravel pit, but by continuing to remove gravel from it. So I read that summary, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but it involved removing another 700 to 850,000 cubic yards over a 7-year period. So I thought, and the Marinellis had asked me, would you consider our old proposal? And I said, I don't know, we're a new board, we're trying to be business friendly, but anyway, so with that kind of gravel, just to give you an idea, a gravel truck holds about 10 cubic yards. Okay, and this is 700,000 cubic yards. They were talking about over 7 years, so 10,000 a year, 30 trucks a day. I mean, this would be, what I told these people was, I can see why the people on Pitcherville Road were probably pretty upset. And then I also told him that I had spoken with, because I'd been called by the guy that owns the abutting pit. The line goes through these pits. Most of this gravel was used to build the Big Dig, a lot of it. And that guy, his name is Mr. Brown, and he excavated too deeply to the water table, and he was asking me, will the planning board approve my importing clean fill? And I said, ooh, clean fill from place else. I said, we have a really tight law on that. And it would have to be so clean, And so what I told this guy is, I know these two people don't get along maybe, or haven't over the years, but you gotta use, the people on Pitcherville Road aren't gonna care whether the trucks are trucking stuff in or trucking stuff out, This is, it's gonna be, they've had it with the trucking. They gotta do a restoration plan, So anyway, where they left it is they suggested to me, I got this back, is they suggest that the planning board develop a conceptual master plan for dealing with the Marinelli parcel and surrounding pits. And I said, hey, we're 5 people, we're citizens, we're not master planners, and we don't know much about gravel pits. But I told him I would talk to the board and I would get back to him. His feeling was that the only thing that made sense for this area would be some kind of residential complex. And if you were going to put a commercial complex in, the only access to this whole area is through the town, which they have a dedicated right-of-way. But it's about a half a mile down on Pitcherville Road, which is otherwise a neighborhood. So there is another pit owner, somebody that's done some removal, that has an frontage on Gardner Road, which would be appropriate, but I think you'd have to cross wetlands and sensitive areas to put an entrance there.
They've already got a bridge.
They already got what?
They already have a bridge.
Oh, they do? Okay, well, that would make sense. So I guess, okay, well, that would make sense to at least have a better access. But anyway, and I don't know, I have the map. Did you have the map? Did you find it?
I couldn't
Okay.
find it now.
Okay, I'll send it out to you guys. It's been floated around. It's actually in planning board documents from months ago. It shows how these pits are related and how the town owns a few of the pieces and.
Oh, was
and-
that the highlighted one?
Yeah.
Oh, I did find that one, but I didn't think that's what we were looking for.
It's all right.
Alright, I'll
It's
send it
all
to
right.
everyone.
We'll send it out. I guess the question I did tell them I would get back to them with some conceptual stuff. We also, two other points I wanna make, is when we had VHS out there, VHB out there with Ryan, and they were gonna do this plan when the Marinellis were gonna cooperate with us. And it's not that they didn't wanna cooperate, but they really thought they had a deal with a solar field worked out. And they had given them like an option or the equivalent, and then that ran out because they're not building solar right now due to the infrastructure, to get it online. But anyway, he had said there's a lot of competition for like office building, light manufacturing sites, because there's a lot of those sites available right now on Route 2 that aren't selling very much, and this has poor access, and it doesn't have water, and it doesn't have sewer. So he thought that it would probably also wind up, probably his housing would be the top of their list, but he wasn't willing to state that because then the Marinellis pulled out, and that's the point at which we narrowed the scope to just deal with the town pit because it's the only land in town to put a senior house on. So, but in thinking about this whole thing, stepping back, and that phase 2 plan is gonna come to us, whether it's clean enough to develop as senior housing. But we have to think about this because, you know, you're not gonna have those 30 gravel trucks a day going on the driveway right in front of the senior. I mean, it's gotta be, we gotta address what's gonna happen to the backland, I think, before we can move forward with the senior housing, at least to some level.
I would think so.
So I actually think, I know, so I wrote to Bill and he said, it's the other side of this.
I know what I said.
Yeah. He says, I think rather than have the planning board develop ideas, I mean, you can speak for yourself, the Marinellis ought to hire a planning firm to develop some ideas to float in front of the board, not adding to your workload. The Marinellis planner would hold a scoping meeting with the planning board and the Marinellis, or the Marinellis or the representative. You could explain that. How would this work? Why don't you explain it better?
Okay. I think that the Marinelli should hire a professional planner, not the planning board. I don't think that it should come out of your funds. It's their property. They're the ones that propose to develop it. And they have a whole lot more options than you do, because they can look at adjacent properties and say, you know, if we bought that one, that kind of thing. So the Marinellis would come in with a professional planning firm, and they would be sitting at the table, you would be sitting at the table, and the planner would say, we have this idea, we have this idea, we have this idea, we have this idea. What do you like, what don't you like? Because that's traditionally, you start somewhere, scoping. How am I doing for planning?
You're sounding great.
Great.
You're hired.
You gotta be Jennifer.
Yeah, no.
You slipped in here. I didn't see you come in.
I just came in.
Oh, okay.
So then they go back and they refine their schemes. Somebody at some point is gonna say that's just a dumb scheme, and they take that off the table. Or somebody's gonna say that's a good idea, but could you do this with that scheme? So they refine the schemes, they come back. The planning board then reviews the refined schemes. Maybe you ask for more changes or backup data, professional information, you know, engineers look at and whatever. And ultimately, you and the Marinellis are gonna say, hey, this might work. Then you can take it to the voters of the town of Hubbardston, change the zoning bylaw to accommodate whatever. So you're gonna have a professional planning firm assist you in writing the modification to the zoning bylaw. And you're not doing it. And more importantly, I'm not doing it.
Well, if I get back to these gentlemen and I say, speaking from the planning board, incorporate your ideas, but say the planning board feels that, I mean, they're willing to, I just couldn't speak for the whole board, right? But the planning board feels like, removing fill from the site, gravel from the site, unless it's a modest quantity that's absolutely necessary, is not, we're not gonna go back into the gravel business here, right?
See, the thing is, I think that if they can gain access to Route 62, Gardner Road,
Yeah,
that they can make that work. Not on the scale that Mr. Brown did. And one of my other comments.
68, you mean, right?
68,
68.
68, yeah, sorry, not 62. My comment on Mr. Brown was, why on earth would we import fill when they have hundreds of thousands of yards of the Marinelli that could be bulldozed? They're here, he's down low.
Yeah.
And they're 60 feet higher than he is with all this gravel. So they just need to push it down that way, and he needs to make it happen because he violated all the rules, he knowingly took it out, he knowingly went down too deep. He
He-
created his hardship.
He did. He says, well, if I brought in the fill, they'd pay me to take it.
Yeah, but that,
And I said, no.
yeah.
No.
Which opens
So
up
I
can of
put in
worms.
this letter back to them, present this and suggest that they get in contact with Mr. Brown and give him his,
Yeah, the other thing that I was blabbing here, the other thing they could do is give you a grant, and you could hire somebody.
well, I mean, this guy is the real estate guy.
No, he's a real estate guy.
Well, his pitch to me,
Having been a planner.
his pitch to me though was, did he work with the town of Wellesley recently, who has a very wealthy town, but a plummeting schools, and he
Yeah.
talked them in designed affordable or I don't know, his client
That-
wound up putting in,
Yeah.
Apples and zucchinis, I mean, that's as far apart as you can get. Wellesley does not have financial issues like we do. They have sewer and they have water. I mean,
Yeah.
the beauty of that pit is every single house out there on the Marinelli's land could get a septic system and a well like that. That, by the way, is in our Aquifer Overlay Protection District too. Mr. Brown went too deep. He can't get a septic system because he went too close to the groundwater. He really can't develop the land because of that reason. Or if you were doing a very large development, you could do a wastewater treatment plant out there like that. So it is
okay.
some of the most developable land in town.
Yeah, I think
from
it's
infrastructural point.
it's kind of the new frontier. I took on the master plan, people with open space, I said, you need to get a handle on where the gravel pits are. You can't just say all the land, there's available land in the north corner of the town. You gotta tell people it's old gravel pits, right? So they're working on getting all those numbers.
Yeah.
All right, well, why don't I try to draft a letter? I guess I don't have a vote. I mean, I don't know what I'd put in the vote, but basically sending forth Bill's plan, maybe suggesting that I've already told them about Mr. Brown, the abutter, needs fill and they should work together. Tell them that we do think that, they should work with, and I'll get his name, the person with the access road for 68. Tell them,
That's Faline, right?
no,
No.
Failing's the one that restored their pit.
Right, but they also abut Marinelli,
Yes, they do.
and they're the ones that have the bridge.
All right, I here's what we'll do,
Gets
is I'll
complicated.
call them and say a letter's coming, we've strategized, and then before I send that letter, I'll let everybody see it on the board,
Thank
and
you.
we'll decide, and Bill too, how we respond so it doesn't end up being our problem, but their problem to solve. I get the point. Okay.
I mean, clearly there is interest by not only the Marinellis, but also, JLL, so.
Well, I think, the carrot and the stick here is, yeah, you should take a couple 100,000 yards of gravel out of there to grade it off, to make it work, to make it worthwhile. That maybe we'll purchase some land with frontage on Route 68 so you don't have to go up Pritchardville Road. Or, they have lots of options.
So it's
They
thinking
really
outside
do.
the box and coming up with some creative solutions that really need to be
Yeah.
addressed here.
Yeah.
They do have, also in this pit, they have, in that area, if you look at their map, they have, some sensitive habitat, endangered species
Yeah,
stock
they-
areas,
the
they
stream.
have wetlands and streams. So I can also put in this letter, we'd expect all of those to be protected.
Yeah, they are not DCR impacted.
They are not.
They are not. That portion of the town doesn't flow to the, Ware River intake or the Guava.
But we can still say in our demand, we would expect those to be protected in any plan, right?
It's state law, so, yeah. Whether we demand it or not, they're gonna have to do it.
Well, they have been marked and, I mean, they're on the plan, so it's
Yeah.
not that they can hide them and just.
Right, well, Nexamp flooded endangered species habitat with 4 feet of sand one year, well before you guys.
There is a history here, and I feel like if we could solve it, we'd be like, yeah,
Yeah, you would.
all right.
I'd volunteer.
I'll get you a statue.
Okay, we have a plan on that, and that's as far as we're gonna get. So, we're gonna take, again, something out of order. So here's what happened. We were gonna have tonight MRPC's presentation on the recreation, space, the open space and recreation draft chapter. And Mr. Voss, who was presenting that, didn't realize we were going in back in person, and he couldn't put the time aside to get here and so forth. So, and we always carry down at the bottom other master plan updates anyway. So Jennifer Burney, who ran the survey that it was announced at the town meeting,
Yep.
is here to talk about the answer to that. And we sort of went back and forth because I think she's going to wind up presenting it to the select board too. But they have a deadline at the end of the month, and she would like to be able to present to at least one board and have a little feedback before the deadline. So she offered to come tonight. She's come a long way, and the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited. It's like my first in-person meeting since last March, so, wow, I even have a dress on.
I hope you don't mind, but I'm gonna
Okay,
take
Phil.
my lead.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
No,
Thanks, Bill.
So, again, my name's Jen, from MRPC. I'm a planner, and I've worked, mainly with small communities and, helping with the master plan, land use chapter and the housing chapter. I wrote a list here. And then, so there's actually been, 4 chapters that are currently underway or have been completed: services and facilities, transportation, and what I put together was the survey to help with the vision and goals of the master plan. Now coming up, starting with this next FY22 will be the implementation of the master plan. That's a chapter, and then tying all the chapters together. So this survey really helps with the goals and the future implementation, if that makes sense. And then just a couple other things that we're going to be helping Hubbardston with is the town center project, the rezoning, and then we've applied, helped Hubbardston apply for a solar grant, and you'll find out if you've been awarded that grant. I'm told in August is when they usually make the announcements.
Just out of curiosity, is it only for solar, or did we also bundle underneath that the battery energy storage systems?
That's bundled in within it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very good.
There's some documents in the document list.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's her letter. She thinks we have a good chance. So the reason I don't want, just because this was also on the letter and it just come up, is there. So the way that came up is that the grant was to the energy.
Yeah, it's the,
I'm not good at acronyms.
and I'm not either at
It's
this
the Department of
energy and
Energy.
environmental affairs, so.
Yeah, Department of Energy and Environmental Affairs, and they had put out a grant proposal, and actually it was John Hume said, do you have anything that would fit this category? And it says helping smaller communities, plan energy issues. And I said, wow, that sounds like, how about solar? And it had a very quick deadline. So what I sent him was all of our notes when we had been talking about solar, and because they have a big budget. This is like 45,000 or something you put in for it. It's a lot of
Yeah.
money. It would include also an overlay. It would be much fancier than we could get from just working with Bill if it comes through, because the siting is important if you can do an overlay. And then that would also maybe free up Bill to help with marijuana and some of our other weak points in our bylaw. So anyway, that went in. So that was what that was about, and it's you can read it. So I know about that, and then you're looking for, with this survey, sets us up for another grant, right?
Well,
Or some other funding?
The survey is part of the master plan, that we've been helping Hubbardston with.
Yep.
So it's just another section within the master plan, but it's really taking all of the chapters and
Okay.
identifying goals. But then coming up, in a master plan, you have to have an implementation section, and that's what we'll be helping you with next, and that's taking all of the goals and now saying how will these be implemented over, this time period. So that'll be coming up next. It was really interesting looking at the survey results. I think you'll be excited
Yeah.
to see them because it really is all of the different land uses. And I think there was a pretty good response, 253. That's pretty good, especially during, COVID, which can be challenging for public outreach. But so I don't know, Mallory, if you were able to.
Nope, we're
Oh.
not able to, but I have the
Okay.
microbook and I forwarded it to everyone.
Oh, great.
Okay, we'll go into it.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna pull it up on my screen too.
It's under documents.
Under MRPC.
Wait a minute, is it an email or do we go to documents?
If you go in under your documents,
And did you do the last one?
the ones you sent today,
Yeah,
which last one?
it just had a little summary thing on the side, and if not, don't worry about it. It's the very last one, but it's fine.
Okay.
It's just my little cheat notes of what the top
MRPC,
three
see it
are.
in the documents list here?
There should be two.
And there's 3. Well, one's the solar project
Yeah.
list. Okay,
Correct.
so master plan survey results,
I
the
just
first
have-
one?
I just have to get quickly into my computer. Give me 1 second. They just changed my password today. So.
This is a no pressure meeting. If we can do it, we wanna do it, but otherwise you can talk to us.
Yeah, I have to
You can
be
use
able
my
to.
Chromebook if you
Oh,
want to.
alright. I just have to be able to look at my, notes, 'cause I don't have
want office
top of
editing.
my
No, I
head.
don't want that.
No. Can I peek over
Of course,
yours? Oh, here it is. Dang, they just changed my password. If I don't write it down, it's gone.
Okay, so here,
There it is.
this first, document is actually the questions with the answers
The
and
details, yeah.
the details. So, everybody that answered lived in Hubbardston, not surprising, it was a town meeting.
Yeah, I think it might be easier to look at the PowerPoint, cause it kinda
Okay.
summarizes it.
Okay. It's the second document, right?
Yep.
I'm getting the first one again. Wait a minute.
Okay, there's one. Everyone have it?
Yep.
Okay, so the master plan, 253 people responded. And we asked the question, does everyone live in Hubbardston or do you work? So it happened to be that everyone who participated actually lives here. How many years have you lived in Hubbardston? The most people that responded were 26 years or more, but we had, quite a bit from that have lived here less. Ages, 35 and up, but the most respondents were 65. And I don't wanna, get into the detail of every single one, but the next question we asked, what are your reasons for moving to Hubbardston? And your top 3 were location, housing and quality, of life, and community character. And what is Hubbardston's top strengths? And the top 3 were natural environment, a safe community, and parks and open space. Question 6 is, what are Hubbardston's top weaknesses, or room for improvement, as I like to call it, that need to be worked on? Number 1 was town center. Number 2 was vacant, underutilized spaces or places. And 3 was other, so there were a lot of others. And then what type of new residential housing would you like to see in Hubbardston? So strongly single-family housing. But number 2 came in as redevelopment of underutilized places. So there's definitely room, for some zoning changes. And then 3 mixed use. So the next one after that, what type of non-residential development would you like to see in Hubbardston in the future? So restaurants and coffee shops, number 1, that's always the case, everyone wants restaurants. Then retail, and then 3rd were services.
Is there gonna be a listing of the other responses
Yes,
for us?
yep, and I don't know if that's in that one document, if it, the PDF that I send, and if not, then I'll make sure that you have all of the others, cause it's really interesting to
Yeah.
see comments. Where in town would you prefer to see additional commercial and job growth? And strong response, 50%, expand the footprint, the existing footprint.
Really?
Yeah, so I was surprised to see that, cause a lot of communities might say, oh, keep it within the footprint, but increase the density. But you can see there's a strong preference for expanding, then second said keep it within the existing, but increase the density. And then, 20% said I like it just as it is, don't change a thing, so.
Oh.
The next one, was about cultural and natural places, your natural, historic. And we asked how often do you visit, and it was, the most response was weekly or monthly, so a lot of people go to these places. Which statement do you agree with most? We asked about open space, so it said balance future open space acquisition with other priorities such as housing needs and growing the tax base. Okay, next one, question 12, what uses should go on land if the town should acquire land? And the top three, these were all really close to each other. Number 1 was open space. Number 2 was public facilities, town services, municipal use, and the third was active recreation. And then, what, solar?
So much for affordable housing,
Well, I mean,
or senior housing.
You have affordable housing's on the list, I'm just going over the top 3.
I'm
Made
just giving
it.
you a
I
hard
have,
time.
yeah. So what do you currently rate how do you currently rate the following public facilities and services, in Hubbardston? We asked, is it adequate, does it need improvement? And I think for the most part, most people felt that some improvements are needed, like if you looked at trees and landscaping on public, land, it was no problem. I think roads, wanted more improvement, but I think for the most part, people felt in general there were some improvements, and that's with most communities. What do you see as the most pressing mobility transportation concerns? So number 1, lack of sidewalks and bike accommodations. Number 2 was pedestrian safety, and 3, parking in the town center. The next one in regards to gravel pits, and you guys were just talking about that. In the future, when they're no longer in use, what should they be used for? Your number 1 response was park or playground, 2, open space, and 3, solar. Housing was 4. So it's on there. The next one, what do you feel are the top priorities for the town center? So the top 3 were improved sidewalks, bike connections, streetscape, and commercial development. And the next question, do you think the following cannabis marijuana establishments should be allowed in Hubbardston? Your number 1 was commercial growth, 2, drying and production, and 3, retail store. I'll skip the transportation one, just wanted to find out how people get around, mostly by car. And then the last question, what do you feel are the top priorities of the master plan? And tied, there are 2 ties, tied for first place, town center improvements and preservation of farms. And then the second one is redevelopment of vacant or underutilized property, so that seems to be a common theme. So yeah, I think the responses were really informative. And as we, work on chapters of master plans, we're looking at all of the studies that have been done, we're looking at past surveys, and that's all incorporated. This is just another way of engagement. But it's not the only one that drives what the goals and priorities are, or the chapters.
Okay.
So I don't know, are you surprised by it, or is this what you expected for responses? Did you learn anything new?
I think, I can't remember which question it was, but where there was room for rezoning.
Oh, the
And what
town
question was
center?
that? No, it was, well, the town center one too, but then the other, should things stay as they are, should they?
Oh,
What
that
question was
that's-
that?
That's the town center one, leave it, about for redevelopment. Where in town would you prefer to see additional commercial and job growth, is how we worded it.
Uh-huh,
So it was keep it within the existing footprint, allow the footprint to expand. I like it just as it is, don't do anything, was the third.
and the main answer was allow it to expand.
Mm-hmm.
So-
50%, over 50%.
Cause
So
that's
that-
kind of that's important. We have not been involved with the economic development and this discussion about where we would expand oddly.
Yeah.
And maybe that's our fault, that our person that's the liaison hasn't been attending that meeting. But can you just discuss what that is, what areas they are looking at?
Well, we haven't launched anything yet, so we have to get through this, and it probably would start up in July. And I think the first thing is figuring out who is gonna drive the cart for rezoning.
Mhm.
And typically when I've worked in communities as a planner, usually you put together a subcommittee or some type of committee with planning board on it, and economic development, board of selectmen, just all of the different stakeholders, so that way by the time if you are bringing a zoning change to town meeting, you have a wide range of different folks on it. So I don't know if that will be how it is done. Does the planning board work closely with the economic development committee?
We don't, I mean, there's no tension between the
Yeah.
boards, it's just that they've done their thing.
We do have a representative from this board in the EDC.
Okay.
Matter of fact, we discussed this earlier today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, hasn't made that many meetings, but it's been a difficult time with COVID.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I have talked to, that's Whitney's board,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
Whitney's
Whitney Freiberg, who chairs it,
Yep.
her other interest is interesting with this plan, is they want to develop a bylaw that will allow the farmers to do events or like a brewery or to make some money so they don't break up the farms, but they can keep them, but not have and also goes along with our make Hubbardston a destination for recreation, right? So there was a bylaw done by Rutland that did this. And I submitted it to the planning board and I sent it to her and I said, I just caught my eye, what's new? And so that she's gonna come back with that too.
Yeah, no, I
She
think that's
thinks.
really, and that was one of the goals mentioned in the land use, was doing that, as a way of saving your farms, because farms really struggle. And I know, I was the town planner in Bolton for 6 years.
Oh.
We had, a bylaw that allowed, farmers to do certain things, so whether it was weddings, all different range. And then we later on wrote a bylaw that not only saved, farms, but it was more so with the antique barns, they were starting to fall apart. So we created a bylaw to preserve those, and it was allowing, antique shops, bed and breakfasts, like small business type things, like a vet, in that way. So zoning is your key for everything, really.
So there's really two projects we should be working with EDC on.
Yeah.
Also-
And I think in that case, it really makes sense, for the planning board and the economic development committee to work together, because bringing things to town meeting can be challenging.
With some of those issues related to mixed uses at the farms, like specifically farmer brewers or farmer distillers, there would be some interesting water usage rights that we would have to address, because they would end up having to have some kind of pathway to understand engineering requirements for wastewater disposal of their systems, because there isn't a public sewer option. So if we were going to be able to encourage something like that, we would also have to be able to have an idea of there being some kind of pathway for them to move forward, which is something we probably should have, but
Yeah, you mean
there's
like
more to it.
a permitting process coming before. Yeah, and I would recommend that as well. In Bolton, it was the Board of Selectmen at the time, but it's whatever board, you know, cause they're also regulating sound, how late you
Yeah,
can
parking.
stay
Yeah.
open, parking, all of those things
Lights,
can get out
things
of,
of that nature,
lights,
absolutely.
all of those things can get out of hand.
Yeah.
So you definitely have to have some board overlooking all of that.
I mean, I'm just thinking of some of the things that you were just mentioning regarding water and sewer. I mean, it's not just the planning board and select board, but quite frankly, it's the Board of Health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Needs to be included in here because they do regulate and they do work primarily with all of the septics that we have here. So we don't have any wastewater treatment facilities in town. Although it was very interesting what Bill was mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
About, well, northeast that little northwest corner there. To my surprise, I was really surprised of seeing the 248 responses on question 17, which is the cannabis marijuana establishment. That there was such a overwhelming number that basically are looking at doing something with it, and quite frankly, the lowest number came in saying none of the above. I mean,
You were surprised at that one.
I was, and the reason is we have dealt with, the planning board has dealt this past year with 2 permitting. And typically what you hear is opposition.
The-
Those are the most vociferous. It's kind of an interesting thing to have in our back of our pockets for us to understand what our constituents really are thinking versus what is happening when we go to these meetings. I'm not saying that we shouldn't hear what happens in those meetings, but we also need to keep in mind that there is what at least appears from this question 17, there seems to be, at least from what I'm seeing here, a fairly big support for this industry, which is very surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, the first one is over 60%, so.
Absolutely. I mean, it's if you take all of the numbers together, and I think you could only choose one.
No, you could select.
You could select.
Yeah.
Okay. So the point though is still the majority of everybody's selections tended to doing the drying, the product production, and the commercial growing. I mean, the 2 of them were over 50%.
And none
So
of the
Yeah.
above was
Yeah.
the least amount, which,
And
that surprised me tremendously when I saw this here.
And the survey was very skewed towards over 65, because they're
Mhm.
just the people that always vote, so it happened to be
Yeah.
at town meeting.
yeah.
So that's 60% of the I mean, you know.
It's a very
It is pretty
that's
surprising.
that's even
Right,
more
which you would
surprising.
think would be probably
Yeah.
less.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have expected to go on that way with the
Yeah.
demographics.
Oh, very interesting.
I'm very surprised.
I did have a question about question design. So
Yes.
like number 11 is a good example about the open space. Were there any like data structure or like bias avoidance techniques that you used when designing the question? Because when I looked at the question, it was kind of to protect open space, and then there's this one which was the one that was most popular, was kind of an elegant balanced solution, and then the other ones, I just wanted to hear if that was something that you thought about while designing the question, on whether or not there might have been any bias designed into that particular question or some of the
No,
others.
and I looked at a lot of other surveys done in other communities to develop this question, and I think that's one thing when you have open space, it's always a challenge when that comes up in communities. Do we preserve it just for open space, or do we look at it and say, well, are there other things that we can do? And I know some communities have actually been pretty successful at doing this and actually been able to save open space by doing, different things on it. So, in Lincoln, where as a town planner, we had a huge property come up, and we had put together a committee called a HOW committee. So it was someone on the housing, someone on agriculture, someone on commercial, planning, board of selectmen, and that way when properties came up, everyone was at the table. Recreation was on it, housing. So when properties would come up, you'd look at it and say, okay, what's the best use for this property? Should it be protected as open space, or do we have other uses? And in this case, actually two different properties that came up. One, we were able to do housing. We were able to do historic came on board, so it was a farm. We were able to save the historic property, and then they did farming within, and we did open space. So that was one example. Another one we did saved the house, and it became a school, a private school, a nature school. We did town property, we put in a soccer field, and we did open space with trails. So it was just a fresh way of looking at properties when they came up. And of course, there's lots of properties preserved just as open space,
But just to make sure I got you there, so
Yeah.
the question was built off of previously tested questions, and that's how most of those were constructed.
yes. Yep. Yep.
It does present, like with the gravel pit properties, we should consider maybe multiple uses on that too. Not in the traditional mixed sense development, but like what you're saying, really saving a section of it for future solar use, because that would be appropriate. It's already, we're working on a solar bylaw where you're not gonna have clear cutting of forest and stuff, and this land would be, set aside some housing, but you don't want 200 new acres of housing.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah,
all
it's
different
interesting.
ways. I've seen over 55 developments with open space, walking trails, and then soccer fields. Or I've seen gravel pits be, redeveloped as strictly solar. In the community I live in, we have a gravel pit that they were trying to do an over 55, and it didn't perk. So now they just have to do 12 single-family houses. So gravel pits definitely can be redeveloped into many different things. It can be more challenging, but yeah.
But
So
maybe
it's trying
suggest to these people that we're really looking for a plan that would incorporate more than one type of use, and list some of those out.
And that's why I think it's
Yeah.
great to bring different people to the table with different ideas, looking at things.
I like your
this-
HOW committee.
Yeah, that
idea.
really changed things, because it was, things would only always go to the open space, and I don't know if you're familiar with Lincoln, more than half the community is preserved. They've done a phenomenal job preserving farms, open space, and they have over 10% of affordable housing, and it's rural, it's less than 5,000 people, so they've done a really good job. But they felt, they had no municipal land to put anything up, like if there was a new school or the DPW they were looking at to be rebuilt, there was no municipal land. And they were strong advocates for affordable housing, senior housing, and so I think they felt that everything that came up was always going to open space. So it was really the boards, the planning board and different groups said, let's get together and look at it more holistically when these come up. And actually, I think because of that, they were able to get really creative uses and better projects in the
Yeah.
end.
There's definitely some interesting thoughts.
Yeah, very
Lincoln
interesting.
is a bit of a different place. I think the median home value is
Oh,
3
yes.
times
Oh,
what we
gosh,
have
yes.
for
Oh, completely.
But we have
Yeah,
that
but-
same
but
thing.
same ideas, so
Yeah.
you can take what works in communities and apply that really
It has to be
anywhere.
scaled differently though.
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
But
place
that,
like
you
this
see
here.
that same pattern though in our town, because CPA has those 3 pots, right?
Yep.
And all of it 90%, maybe not 90%, but it's a huge piece of the pie goes to open space.
And in that case, that's another thing, Lincoln, you had CPA, they used all of those things. They used historic CPA to preserve the the house and the barn. They actually moved the house and created a barn, so they used they used affordable housing to help, 25% became affordable. They were only gonna do, 10%, so they worked with the developer on that, and then the open space. So yes, tapping into CPA is another way. All three categories is another way doing creative projects.
I think housing lags,
One of
maybe
the-
just this community, but.
One other thing that I thought was very interesting to look at here were questions 6 and 7. And I think if anything, it accentuates our focus last year, over the last couple of years, of the support of the tax titles. Because we've been looking at the underutilized properties or those properties that are blighted, and we've had some problems with that. And how do we get those to become again active properties from a tax-based perspective and also to improve them? And from that perspective, I see that in the responses that we had, at least on question 6, that was one of the biggest items that did appear to show up, the vacant underutilized blight. And the other one was on question 7, what type of new residential housing? Yes, single-family homes is there, but the redevelopment component of underutilized properties into housing is also kind of like goes hand in hand with some of the work that we did last year. And I think if anything, that can accentuate the good work that we started, and probably ought to continue.
Yeah, and then you see right under that, mixed use, over 55, senior
Sure.
housing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's I don't know if there ends up being a skew in it, because when doing, obviously spending the last couple months on the campaign trail, I talked to a lot of people, and getting to talk to them in one-on-one conversations and talking to them about, well, develop in conjunction with conservation of farmland or cluster development or stuff like that. Like when you take the time to actually get to really talk to them, and oh well, that sounds like a pretty decent idea. So I don't know if like the number on some of those things are reliable, because I'm not sure that it's something that most people just going through the survey would click on and appreciate what it is. Whereas when they look at the response for 7, like, oh, single family, I know and understand what that is. Condos, I get. Accessory dwelling, wedemas. So I worry about some of those other options that are in there perhaps being underrepresented. But overall, I agree.
yeah, and we can look at the others too to see comments, but absolutely, that's just another technique that you mentioned, doing the open space residential development, the cluster zoning, as a way of having housing and saving farmland or open space.
Yeah. Well, I guess my point is I don't really think that so it came in at 20%, and I think that number is likely underrepresented.
Which one?
On question 7,
Okay.
the what type of new residential housing would you like to see in Hubbardston in the near future?
Why do you think, what was your point on that, you think?
My point on that is going out and talking, and granted, I'm basing it on mostly anecdotal evidence, and well, this is still less than scientific itself. So
You think it's skewed against what?
I think it's skewed against some of those items that are less recognizable, like housing developed in conjunction with conservation farmland, the cluster development example that came in at 20
Oh, I
points.
see, okay.
And compared to single-family houses that
Yeah.
came in at 63 points, because everybody would run down the list and be like, oh, single-family houses, I understand that, they're not offensive. Cluster development, that sounds like something that's big and commercial, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my point there
yeah,
is,
good, valid point.
yeah, that I would suspect that some of those numbers are possibly underrepresented.
And that's why, when you're doing a master plan, it's good to look at all the past studies, surveys, and kind of incorporating all of that. yeah, no, that's a valid point about the single family. Any other feedback, comments?
So, will we have then, the ability to get some of those, other, please specify?
Yeah,
Is there a
I'll send those out either
Great.
tonight or first thing in the morning,
Perfect.
you'll have it all. I just press a button and send it to you on SurveyMonkey, so.
Great. Thank you so much for driving all the way here and
Yeah.
walking us through it.
It's my pleasure. It's my
Very
pleasure. It's
interesting,
such a
very
pretty
interesting.
community.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Ah, what boring stuff do we have after that meeting, you know?
I know, planning is fun. All right, have a great night, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to
Yeah, as soon as-
email me.
And if you
Thank
hear
you.
about that grant, let me know
Yeah,
with the
as soon
solar,
as I do, I will.
yeah,
Yep,
thanks.
okay,
Keep our fingers
bye.
crossed, thanks. So, I don't know, I just wanna go down a few things, we don't have to make it a late meeting. The ARPA survey was something that, that stands for the American Recovery Plan Act, you know, all this money that the feds have been pumping into the system.
Yep.
And there was a survey sent around, kind of on short notice, and I didn't check my email, and I missed the deadline. But I don't know, it wasn't really directed at the planning, but the reason I included it is it showed all of the targets for the ARPA funds, which is a huge amount of money flooding in. So, you know, it was a needs assessment sort of thing, and then I went from that, and then the next day was this Massachusetts Joint Regional meeting, and they have a huge amount of money that flooded in there too, and with very short notice. It was like from the federal government, we wanna give you millions, tell us what you wanna do, you got 10 days, kind of situation. I mean, it was just kinda crazy, so they looked at things that that have been put on the back burner for a long time, and they're trying to move them up. And that they think that one of the things, cause they're roads and bridges, right, basically, is they were talking about promoting this interchange off Route 2 in Athol, an exit. And I said to them, doesn't that happen exactly where Route 2 narrows down pretty
Yep.
suddenly from
Yep.
4? So why don't you put it into widening Route 2 further on, you know, putting the next 5 miles of Route 2, it would be
It's been like that for years.
yeah, I know. And they said, oh, we didn't really think about that, but we'll add that too. Maybe we can add that too. So I don't know. My sense is there's a lot of money out there, and there's not a lot of, you know, it's all not a lot of sizing up what are the most critical things we should be doing with it. But I don't know what we can do about it as a planning board. I just wanted to just point that out, that this is kind of what's going on out there. So I have one of these handouts was the marijuana bylaw problem, which it was when we finally got done with 69. It's kind of came across as a rant probably, so I apologize. But I think we need to think about doing something about this bylaw. It's not really a zoning bylaw. I mean, it doesn't do anything but say, I don't know, you can look at it, and then you can look at what Bill's response was. So it's in this. Do we need to revise our local marijuana bylaw? And I printed printed out all that's in it, literally, this is all that's there. And it doesn't even say, like it says, outdoor marijuana cultivation establishments licensed for tier 2 up to 5,000 square feet. Well, if it's marijuana, we know that 5,000 square feet defined in the CCC regulations is canopy. So it really means you can grow 10,000 square feet of land, right? So that's now a quarter acre
Mhm.
that you can put in any residential. I just think that nobody really thought about it. And I remember when we were dealing with the Bowie property, they said, okay, we're gonna put this 6-foot fence on the property line with a razor wire on top of it.
Yep.
It's like, this is like madness to me, you know, we need to rein it in.
Yep.
And I think that, I think there may be I think it was maybe something Mr. Bradco said to us, is that he thought, yes, marijuana is popular. I mean, look at it, came out popular again, right? But that maybe people didn't understand that you don't even have to go to the CCC, you can grow your own 12 plants a person, you know, or
For
for your
personal
family,
consumption.
6 a person. So it has nothing to do with depriving anybody of access to marijuana, it's commercial, where do we want this commercial to go? And why did it get sort of a blanket, you know, I mean, you know, nobody thought about it. Nobody thought about the water use, nobody thought about, so I put in things that I thought should be in here, which is, you know, maybe it should be geared to, yes, you can plant up to 5,000 square feet, but that has to be put on a lot that's 5 acres or something, you know, we're allowed to split that, and say, okay, you can put 2,500 square feet on a, you know, by acres, you don't have to just go by these tiers.
Mhm.
So we need to think about how to get a handle on this, I think. And certainly setbacks, I thought, why are there no setbacks with that fence and the razor wire? I remember thinking that and then thinking, oh, because setbacks only apply to buildings. This is like,
Typically, yeah.
yeah, so I mean, we need we need to keep it, it's part of odor control about it. One of the things we talked about in the solar bylaw was we wouldn't allow clear cutting.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should not allow clear cutting for marijuana either.
Mm-hmm.
The water, we've gotta think about the water. I mean, even with the drip irrigation system, I think Damon's doing his best to get the water use down, Bowie too, with drip irrigation. It's still a big draw on a pretty limited aquifer. So anyway, the red comments are Bill's additions, except that 8 got repeated twice, somehow. Anyway, we need to do this, I don't even know where to start it tonight, but I thought we had to start the conversation. So this is my start of the conversation. If you want to just think about it, we'll continue it on as an agenda item for next time.
Okay.
But if everybody sort of thinks about it, what limits would you like to see? And come with those ideas next time.
Okay.
And then I'm thinking if we're lucky and we hit on the solar grant, we can get Bill to work on this instead. He'll have to have a piece of the solar too, because in the end you have to, you know, you're just gonna get a prototype, you're not gonna get probably everything we want without his help, but I think Bill would help on this, cause I think it drove him crazy to have no guidelines and just a open, I mean, the mindset, I think, of the planning board that passed this was, well, we'll just require a special permit for every one of them, and then the planning board can impose whatever conditions they want, but it's
I
not.
think it opens up a can of worms also, because at that point in time, it's like, it's a free-for-all. Why are you putting restrictions on me? And now you have to justify why the restrictions are being put.
Right, where in the
Which I
first
think-
place, if you had said, you can't
Absolutely.
plant over half the lot, or you can't, you know, whatever those rules, then they knew before they bought the property what they were, you know,
Correct.
gonna get away with doing, and they weren't gonna get away with doing. So, it's too late to do this tonight, but come back, I'm gonna leave it on, and I'm gonna, until we flush out some basic guidelines, then we'll send it to Bill, maybe you'll get some help with it. And I'd like to see it done sooner rather than later, cause I think it's wide open the way it is. You know,
Are
there's
there-
one big farm for sale around town now, it's 300 acres. They could subdivide it and have 10 marijuana farms, and they could all go up to 100,000. I mean, they could, each one of those squares
Where?
could go up. There's a big farm in Hubbardston for sale, listed anyway. You check Zillow, I don't know where it is, but, yeah, you know, there needs to be some kind of control over it. But we'll take into consideration that 60% of the town favors it. So it's a balancing act, right?
Are there any towns around us that have recently put out any bylaws on this?
I haven't done the research.
Good
You wanna,
question.
you have any time, maybe you could look at it.
I'll take a look.
I haven't seen a model bylaw or put out by the state. They also said to me, cause Brian said to me, well, we think this is good enough control because the CCC regulations are so strict that it fills in the blanks here. Well, it doesn't fill in the blanks. It does like define canopy and stuff, but it's not, It just needs to be
Yep.
regulated, so I agree. If we had another one we liked that we could start from with the model, take a look.
So can I just, I mean, I see certain themes emerging that we have to really contend with over the next several months and potentially definitely before the next year. I mean, I hear marijuana, which is really, bylaw is I think a very important one. The solar bylaw obviously is one that has been mentioned, and I think, we probably have some good help. I also remember and remind everybody that we as, members of the planning board, in so many ways, were, working on the rate of development,
Oh, yeah.
and that needs to be addressed.
Right.
And just make sure that by the next year we have some proposals out there.
Yeah.
All of these are longitudinal projects that require hearings, that require potential multiple meetings. I think what we need to make sure is that, especially once we have a full board again, that we set sort of like a plan on how we would like to address this here, and just make sure that we get to our goals within a reasonable amount of time. So I think the battery energy storage system, solar one, we have discussed several times as to whether or not this can be proposed as part of the fall town meeting. That might be one of the very first things that we need to address. The rate of development, we definitely need to make sure that we have that goal set for minimally by next year.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to make sure that we have some form of a timeline set for very large sets of issues. I mean, we have a really ambitious plan here. Marinelli
know.
project,
Yeah.
for example, is another
Oh.
very large
I know.
project. And so I'm looking at this here, with us meeting once a month or even twice a month, we're gonna have some real full agendas here. And these are really important items for us as the planning board to work through. We just need to make sure that we are not only prioritizing it, but allocating sufficient time and making sure that we are kind of meeting the expectations that we have set with the constituents that we represent here.
I think that's right. So
Yeah.
with the solar, if we don't get the grant, that's already, we have a drafting process and we'll go to Bill, we're gonna get that done.
Absolutely.
Because you also have to, I don't think it's more or less important than marijuana, but at least you have a start and you need to finish something.
Absolutely.
If that does come through, where they'll do the heavy lifting on it to draft it, that would be good. Then we could move right into marijuana and,
Yeah.
but we have to let them know too, we need this by.
Yeah.
What-
So we're really looking at those two items, the battery energy storage system and the solar bylaw in conjunction, right? Okay.
Right.
So that definitely, I mean, I don't know what's the timeline for the town fall meeting, early October?
Yeah, I
Maybe?
think it's usually October. We haven't gotten anything official yet. But I
Okay,
think
so
they
that's
usually go
that's
October.
really only about, by the time it needs to be ready, it's really, we only have about 3 months.
3 months, yeah.
To make sure that we
They-
have this tidied up.
You know, they had a timetable, did you see that?
I did
They
not.
put in, maybe that didn't accommodate it. If we can go back to our documents,
Okay.
I don't wanna. I mean, I'd be willing to give it a little more time if we, solar, no,
I mean, the
Oh.
other thing is that we're not starting from scratch, and if they are looking at what we already have, plus the amendments that we're looking at
we
adding,
might be able to push it,
there
yes.
may be a good opportunity for us to push it, yes.
Cause I didn't, I did develop that draft based on Athol, and that wasn't part of it, but our wish list was part of it. Where is it?
So actually, I'm looking at the
EEA
task one,
grant.
task two, task three, and task four. Task four basically, is really not until December 31, 2021. So it's the end of the year, which
Yeah.
I think is not, it's definitely not gonna accommodate what we need here. We really need to look at getting some compression in the timelines.
Well, I think we're gonna know about it we're gonna know about it soon, and then maybe I can talk to MRPs, I can talk to them. And say, we need to push this up to get it done.
I mean, I think that task one and task two are probably fine. I think where we need to potentially work with them is making sure that task three and task four, which is actually the presentation, the present final bylaw, and maps to the planning board, et cetera, it may have to be, we
Moved
may
up.
have to compress them into the September timeline too.
Okay, well, I don't wanna go, spend too much time on this till we know whether they're gonna grant it or not. I
Sure,
do
no, it
think
makes perfect sense.
MRPC will accommodate us, though.
Okay.
Cause they're, you know, it's MRPC that gets this money, basically, to do this for us, right?
Mhm.
So, I think they could do that. I would love to see an overlay. I would
Me-
really
Yeah.
love to see an
Oh,
overlay
absolutely.
zone,
I think
and
it
I don't
makes
see
a lot
any
of
other
sense.
way that would happen. Look at the size of this budget they're asking for. And most of that is because I think, well, a lot of it is the mapping, you know? And we can put them on every meeting. I will push that if we get it.
Yeah.
But that's the first hurdle we gotta get over.
Okay.
And
So
I
again,
will,
I just think having an inventory of all of these various large projects that we have, we just need to make sure that we have sort of like people assigned and working committees put together.
I'll try to put, should be a timetable chart, meetings,
Yes.
kinda like this actually was.
Absolutely.
Alright, I'll see what I can do on that. And I agree with Bill, we cannot really take on the gravel pits, that has to be something they take on,
I agree so too.
Yeah.
so
And
I
there's no
will,
reason why it has to come out of our funds, it really
Never.
has to come from somebody who's interested in potentially making that a development project, because there's an economic incentive for them to.
I'll try to, I will circulate a draft before I answer those folks.
Okay.
See, try to get us all in consensus on that. I don't know what else is on here. Old business. Oh, we finally have a new listing of solar fields, and it's on this, it's just a little, which is actually really important. Who owns the solar fields? Where are they? How many acres? I asked them to put that in the master plan,
Mm-hmm.
and it really was kind of a lot of work to dig it out. And, so keep it, it's a golden piece of paper there, and you'll know where our solar fields are. It's all been a mystery to me since I got on this board. So we have, you know, what is it, 5 active and 1 planned, or
Mhm.
there's some that I didn't even know about,
Mhm.
because they're very hard to discover. They're not visible from the road, thank God, right? But,
Yeah.
but they're also, they're not, the landowner is not necessarily the operator.
Right.
Right, so there was a lot of digging on Mallory's part, and then they change hands, cause the operator is not the owner, and then the developer is not the operator, and so anyway, it's good to have that up to date, and we should try to keep it up to date, and take a look at it. They are supposed to, each one of those is supposed to put out an annual report to us, that's part of their special permit. So it
Okay.
will also help us in getting letters out to them, saying your annual report is due.
When's the last time you saw them?
Christina did get annual reports.
Okay.
I don't know when they're due,
Okay.
but put it on your checklist and we will look it up. I think they're supposed to be once a year from everybody,
Okay.
and I think I don't know whether we set one deadline and we send out one letter to all of them, they're due. I think we could do that.
That'd be easy.
We are asking every solar field
That's what I do for. Yeah.
I know that's an obsolete term, solar installation to provide their annual report to us by X date,
Mhm.
and then, you know, you don't want just a paragraph, it's going fine, it's just, you know, you need criteria in it,
Okay.
so we need to look at that and
Do
refine
we
it.
already have set criteria, or?
No, we do not. I
No,
think
we
we
do
have
not.
just simply, it's a general report, that's the way
Okay.
it's been described.
But
Some of the solar fields have done a really good job, some just don't answer.
Right,
And
so,
we have had a problem with that, which I think is probably one of the things we need to make sure that we are amending in our bylaw, and that this be a requirement.
yes, yes,
Okay.
that's it, yeah, that on a certain date. It is required in the bylaw, the solar bylaw, they file these annual reports, but it doesn't specify, I think, the criteria.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we could,
And there's no criteria for not, there's nothing saying what happens if they do not provide that report.
Yeah.
right, I
Just
mean,
going through Christina's old emails, looks like she's gotten quite a few of them, so.
and maybe we did put some criteria, I think we should say state at least power generated, pilot paid,
Mhm.
acreage, you know,
Any changes,
reported
construction,
problems.
upgrades, things of that
maintenance-
nature.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Plans for expansion, or, I mean, it should have some basic criteria there.
It says the owner of the solar installation shall provide a report to the planning board in January of each calendar year with the following information: total amount of electricity generated, major maintenance performed, planned or actual major system modifications, change of ownerships or changes to the bond amounts.
By January of every year,
Yes.
So I can send them out in December, the letters out like
Yeah.
December 1st? Okay.
I think this year we didn't get any. And we
You-
didn't
you-
request any either.
Yeah.
Well, or we could send it out, since it says by December 1st. We could send one out sooner and say, these were due in December, please provide as soon as possible.
Correct.
So we don't skip a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
You need to, create a really good section on solar, all the installations, and keep them up to date, cause we have bonds for these people.
Yeah.
And then they change hands and the bonds don't get changed over with names and stuff. I mean, it's become a huge
Messy.
little subset of planning boards. And I don't know that it should be, but it is.
Okay.
It falls on our plate, so we should at least try to do it. I asked them, which is why gravel is on this, we always have it on there, with the gravel pit, in addition to Marinelli, MRPC is trying to get an accurate list of all the gravel pits. And finally I went through, the open space plan had a number, how much is in there, so there's a code, that goes with, it's mining, oddly, but it's mining. So I went through the assessors, through our old list of gravel pits that Christina had worked on, and looked at which were actually listed as mining. Cause some of the gravel pits, like the Marinellis, it's 5 or 6 parcels, some of which have been mined and some of which are just sitting there. And so it's hard to get an accurate read on the gravel pits. So we're working on that, but that'll be the next list. Next
Okay.
time we meet, you'll have that list too. Affordable housing, I don't really have anything from Habitat. I don't have an update on the tax title. You might ask about that again,
Sure.
where that stands. Are we moving along? What else is on here? The bylaws. So the bylaws that we passed, the rate of development and the sign bylaw, they're both got sent into the Attorney General's office, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the Attorney General has 90 days to respond, whether they accept it or not. And I think it goes in by default if they don't respond, but I think they're very good about responding. We're gonna get a response. And then I think there's some posting requirements when it
Okay.
gets passed,
Once it's passed.
but I'm not sure what those are. So we need to check that out when you hear from the AG.
Okay.
I was going to bring that up because the last zoning bylaw that we have published on our website is the one that's dated from 2018. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there were some changes made since then.
Which bylaw was that, do you know?
It's the associate member.
Oh, the associate, and it's not on there yet?
No,
I
because
don't know,
I
wasn't
think
here
that took place, if I'm not mistaken, not last year, but it was 2 years ago, which was 2019.
What did I do remember this, but I don't remember what the essence of the change was, and I just then read the wrong one.
The change was that it has to be a resident from the town. Oh, wait a minute,
No,
that's
the
no,
general
that's the
bylaw.
general bylaw, I
General bylaw.
apologize,
Oh,
I stand
okay.
corrected on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, okay.
I stand corrected on that,
The same thing
yes.
applies, that you have to do
Yes.
the same. No, I don't know, maybe zoning is the only one you gotta go to the Attorney General on.
Yes.
I don't know, but anyway, so just keep a lookout for an
Yeah.
answer from them, and it should be coming back. You can go 90 days from the town, from when you send in the letter, I think, or from the town meeting, I don't know what the 90 days.
Okay.
But anyway, you should hear back from them. Okay, so now I'm gonna give Mallory the floor, who's gonna talk about administrative matters, the timeline situation, and explain the craziness that resulted from 69.
Yeah, so basically what I'm trying to do is avoid anything like that ever again. By putting, Bill helped me put together some proposed verbiage that basically just says that anything that you want to be heard needs to be into me, paper copy and PDF, so I can send it out virtually 10 days before the scheduled meeting to allow for us and for Bill to have enough time for review.
Absolutely.
So this would be, if you agree with this is the paragraph he has.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, go ahead.
So, all applications, whether new or revised, shall be submitted by an applicant in a timely manner to allow the board and others time to review the material. Application materials must be submitted in 2 formats. 1, hard copy printed as outlined in the regulations, and a duplicate electronic version of the same materials in a PDF format unless another format is determined acceptable by the board. Printed hard copy materials shall be by hand delivery or other delivery service such that the materials are received in the planning board's office by the close of business 10 calendar days prior to the date of the public meeting or hearing. Materials may be submitted after the 10 calendar day timeline. Materials submitted after the 10 calendar days timeline may not be reviewed or considered suitably submitted for discussion or inclusion into the board's review at the public meeting or hearing, except as determined otherwise by the chair of the board.
And then, we explain why with the Friday off, you need to make it 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Which I agree.
Yeah.
So what we would do is, if everybody agrees to this, we do have, operating procedures manual, which is in our, I think, our planning board
drives,
documents list, and we would just add this to it, authorize her to add it to it.
Yes,
This is in there, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's,
I also have a hard
say,
copy.
I just printed it off because Bill sent it to me separately, but. If you have hard copies there
Yeah.
too? Oh, give one. Anybody else want a hard copy that's not on there?
we'll take
You know
the-
what, you could do this, and then if we take the vote tonight, you can
Yeah,
just slip it in with your procedures, your
Mhm.
operating. Does everybody have a copy of the operating procedures?
It's
You
right
probably
in the
don't.
G drive.
It's in the G drive, alright, so you're gonna add it to the G drive, and you can have a hard copy, so it'll appear in the G drive.
Yep, we can add it to our applications too, so that when you apply
Yes.
for
Yes,
this.
yes.
Okay.
So, if everybody's in favor of doing that, I'll make a motion, usually the chair doesn't make motions, but I guess I can make a motion with the 3 members here, that we adopt the application deadline proposal as drafted and submitted tonight to add to our operating procedures.
I'll second that motion.
More discussion, anybody? Okay, we'll vote. Lipdahl, aye.
Steiger, aye.
Monroe, I.
Okay, so you've got that. We've done the invoice, correspondence, I have some interesting correspondence. I got an inquiry about the cell tower, so I don't know, did you find anything about the cell
I
tower?
haven't heard anything new yet. No, I did inquire.
This
about
is
it.
obviously a commercial, somebody that wants to use the cell tower that the town is building
For some time.
to rent space on it, which I had understood that Ryan said it would be allowed eventually when it was up and running.
Yes, and they were looking at that as a source of revenue.
Right, a source of revenue, and it's so much better because we do have a cell tower bylaw, and there's about 5 places in town where cell towers could go up,
Mhm.
and we really don't want 5 cell towers in town. So, I was trying to get some information back to this guy.
Did he
But
call
I
you
need,
back?
I called him back and or I guess I sent him an email back.
Okay.
I sent him an email back. He wrote me because we were the planning board. What do you know about it? It's been approved. I wrote him back and I said, yes, it's been approved, but it was not really a planning board approval because it was a municipal project and they're exempt from planning. But I'll try to get some information to you
Mhm.
on when it's going to be built and what the policy would be. So,
I
to your
sent it to
interminable list there, if you could, if you could also add to
Tom Fields.
get some, I'll try to get, I just wanna discourage people from applying for a cell tower, if they're gonna be able to rent space on one. Cause I don't wanna site another cell tower in town if we don't have to.
I did send him over to the town administrator as well, so
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
well then just follow up with the town
yeah.
administrator.
See if they spoke.
Catasto, this is, a letter, Bill also sent it. So that was our first gravel pit reclamation and then it didn't happen because there was no paper produced at the paper mill, which is used to manufacture the topsoil, so now they need an extension. So I will work on that, but you already sent me a reminder on
Mhm.
that, right? So, to make sure it doesn't expire, cause if it expires, they gotta start over. And that was another tremendous effort on Bill's part and our part. I got an odd request from Glenn Eaton of MRPC that says they're reorganizing and he wants to talk to me, but also assuring me all the projects would go forward. So I don't know what that's about, but I only got that today and I'll have to give him a call and I don't know. Whitney, I told you about, this is a conversation. She wants to come before us and talk about a farm venue bylaw, which was
What was presented
yeah,
earlier.
yeah. And then Dakota, he came and talked to us in the meeting I already told you about. So, I think that's it, unless other people have other things to discuss. Otherwise, we all have to show up Monday here, right?
Yeah,
select
they're
board
having in
meets right
person.
here, to get John DeMalia to come reappointed, or whoever.
Yeah, Robert, and then it's Damon's outreach for his
And,
phase
right,
two.
right, so two things we have to stay for, and we do need a quorum, so come. With John, he called me tonight, he's a volunteer firefighter, and he's got a training on Monday that's a direct conflict. So he said, well, do you think I should come? I said, well, I think you should come if there's any competition. But I don't know, have you gotten have there been other letters of inquiry or interest?
I have not received anything,
And they would come to you or the clerk?
clerk. I wouldn't have anything, I wouldn't.
Well, I
have
told him, I mean, that's what I told him. But I told him we'd try to let him know.
Okay.
If we were aware of any competition, then I thought he should come. So they can remind the board who he is and that he's served. But other than that, I don't think we need him there to vote on, do we? If we know he's willing to serve and,
No, I mean, the only thing that we have asked, those who are submitting themselves as candidates is to present a brief,
Letter, right?
letter of, intention for them, to present to the board.
okay, I'll have him email you
Yeah.
that he's willing to serve, and he did have a letter last time when he was appointed, wasn't
Okay.
that long ago.
And that was the process that I went through too when I was appointed.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
John doesn't have like the legal resume that you can pull out of your hat like many of us, but,
I think the fact that he was a member of this planning board
Yeah.
and participated
yeah,
for 2 years
Yeah.
already, I think is a great indication of
I-
his abilities and capabilities.
yeah.
And you should certainly accentuate that.
I'll call him back, I told him I would, and I'll tell him to send you something, just email you something that could be distributed
Okay.
on his behalf.
Sure. Should it go
Uh,
to me or to Lori? Probably to the town clerk.
Okay,
You can send it to both, but.
and that, and then you let him know if you know of anybody else
Yeah.
that's submitting, because if there is nobody else, he said they really frown upon your missing the trainings, they go to a lot of work to set them up,
They
and they
do.
want
Right,
all
makes
their
perfect
volunteers
sense.
there,
Absolutely.
so, okay. So we'll see you all Monday, and then our first meeting, unless something comes up, is gonna be 7:15. So you get a little break.
Okay.
Then we're gonna come back and Christopher's gonna have solved our marijuana bylaw problem.
Obviously.
Duh.
I'll just write a whole legal treatise
Yeah,
on it
that's
while I'm
right.
at it, you know?
And I will send you the letter to the gravel pit people as a draft. Maybe I won't wait so long, I'll get people to comment on a draft, I think I can do that. Cause we voted on what we're gonna do, is write it back.
Yep.
Alright, motion to adjourn, somebody?
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair?
Second,
All in favor? Livedall aye?
Steiger, aye.
Monroe, aye.
Great.